pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next up, we have our annual STIP meeting with the YDOT. We got YDOT Public Relations Specialist Cody Beers and crew.
Yeah, we'll introduce ourselves. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As everybody knows, I'm Cody Beers with YDOT.
Randy Merritt, construction engineer at YDOT.
I'm Pete Halston, district engineer.
Todd Frost, resident engineer with YDOT here in Cody. Jack Hoffman, I'm the district traffic engineer. Lyle Lamb, I'm the district maintenance engineer.
I'm Jim Berry, I'm the maintenance foreman here, Cody.
Great. Your show, take it away.
All right, thank you. There's Pete.
There is a sign-in sheet. If you haven't signed it, please make sure you sign it.
Cody.
There's also handouts. This is a list of the projects in the STIP. And what's the other one you have?
There's various
Okay,
projects.
various projects that are in various locations. So to start out, I'd probably give you an update on what I think is about
Okay.
the study for Bighorn Avenue. The agreement is signed, and then if we think it may be in front of the commission on Thursday to get funded, or it could be the August meeting, we're gonna try and get it from the commission on Thursday. So we could be starting sometime.
Either way, Philip Goldman is from the city is supposed to be paring down the list of consultants that this would go to, and then getting members of the Urban Systems Committee, which Todd will sit on for YDOT, and then Philip will pick another 3 or 4 individuals from that committee to find down and pick a consultant, so they can get started on that, whether it's approved by the commission Thursday or in August, so they can get moving on.
We probably have a consultant on board by September-ish.
That would be my guess, and probably about a 12-month study to get through the school year and all that, of having different options and impacts for things down
We could involve the commission to whatever degree you would like.
I'm just a little surprised that it's taking that long. I sat on the school board in 2005 when they did the design for that highway, and we put a 6-inch, or requested a 6-inch conduit from Freedom Street at that time. And I've been reading all the newspaper articles on everything about, didn't know the growth and all of that, and that was extremely surprising to me because we talked about it those years, about how everything on that end was going. Is there anything that can be done in the interim until the study is done? Is there some kind of a I don't know, yellow light or whatever that can be done to help out? If it's gonna take a year to do the study, we're probably several years out on having any kind of major construction change or something like that. Is there anything else that can be done?
Well, to expedite the study, we planned on commissioning a study of Footstie interchange Blackbird to see if that one's getting close to Lawrence. And I think if there were a signal at Blackburn, it would help that situation because of the 15 cars. But the geometry of Freedom Street and what is that, Roberts, that would be very difficult to put a signal right there without changing the geometry of the accesses. It would take some access management. That impacts business owners. That impacts a lot of people. So I think the commission's involvement in that study, representing all the users, the people from Powell and the school kids and everybody, I think would be important to have a comprehensive look at that. But the timing of something at Freedom and Robertson, a lot of that may depend on the town, because if there's realignment of some of those streets, that's a thorny foot. And foe would be the access control.
There is a similar type type situation. I know last time, I think we visited about it, there was a comment about concrete structure, this or that on the state highway. And within about 2 weeks of that, I drove through Riverton on the state highway when one was being built at a three-way cross there, just west, as you go toward the west, yeah.
And second.
Yeah, and that looked like something, certainly not a traffic engineer, but it looked like something that might work in an area like we're talking about. It kept traffic flowing, but it gave the walker time to get across, and it isn't a four-way, it's a three-way.
So that one is slightly different due to the fact we put a median in the middle of the road.
Right.
If we did that down at Freedom and Robert Street, you would no longer have left-hand turns off of Bighorn Avenue to those side streets to Freedom or Roberts. If we put it in that intersection, the conflicting turning movements is really the issue. You've got so many cars going so many different directions, and then putting pedestrians in the middle of that, something's got to give. And so there's going to be impacts to that system down there, again, to accesses, to the direction and mobility of the traffic down there. So to just go throw an island out in the middle there could actually cause other troubles that would have. And so that's one of the reasons for this overall corridor study is what are the options? What are those impacts? If things went to a needs hearing, you would have to have that study to be able to do anything with adjacent properties and that kind of stuff anyway.
A good analogy to the situation we have is the one in Wyoming by the stadium with less pedestrians, but similar types of traffic, similar type of roadway where they have to put the medians in for the hogs and limit access. In order to- And I apologize, I forgot before I started, thank you for your time and allowing us to come.
Thank you for showing up.
Your meeting, and thank you everybody for coming. The other thing I wanted to update you on was, that comes up annually is the intersection of 280 and the Powell Highway. We did put that in for, safety money, but it did not get approved this time. But we'll continue to pursue that, and I'll talk about that a little bit later in the presentation, how we're doing our spending, is what I tried to think. Do we have any other updates?
I don't know, get school district people here, Pete, they might have questions about the big one they will study. Might as well get them out here in the open.
I have mine here. Thank you, Mr. Holson. Thank you, Chairman Livingston and members of the commission. So I'm Stephanie Bell. I'm Vice Chair for Park County School District Number 6. This is Peg Monteith, our superintendent. I'm the acting chair of what we call the City of Cody Park City Working Group. We've been meeting for about 5 months on this issue. One of the things that community members don't understand is when we talk about the time, so Mr. Halston, we're talking about 12 months as far as a corridor study. So after that corridor study, what do you anticipate the time frame for if that showed that traffic devices should be placed? What would be the time frame that you would expect some improvement to happen?
I think it would depend on what improvements we're talking about, because if we're talking about something at Robertson and Freedom Street, and we had to either change the geometry of the city streets or limit people's access, that right-of-way process, and especially if it ends up in condemnation, can take quite a long time. If it ends up just that we need a signal at Blackbird, that could be in the STIF for the next year. So there would be a public process associated with, like I say, depending on what the improvement would be. It would kind of depend on the time frame to get the design and get through NEPA.
But we could easily be talking 3 years.
Like I said, it depends, like it could be fiscal 23 if it's just a signal.
So one of the things, I've learned a lot through this process, but one of the things that I've learned that it's just really hard as a community member this, that there's this requirement for warrants for crossing Bighorn Avenue. We happen to have a great meeting with YDOT on February 9th, and so we all know what our common goals are. Our common goals are safety. But when we're talking about warrants, and really the expectation, if I'm right, is 20 individuals wishing to cross Bighorn Avenue per hour.
I don't think it's that many, is that what it is?
That's typically the lower threshold to consider crossing.
For that particular warrant, for the number of pedestrians, but there's a number of warrants.
And so what is hard, going through this process and having sat at that intersection of Freedom and Bighorn Avenue for 20 years watching this cross, I know as a trustee that there's a number of things that aren't going to change. Number one, the location of Cody Middle School is not going to change. Two, the development north of Bighorn Avenue, which is residential, that is not going to change. Number three, we're starting to see a real issue with just drivers trying to negotiate that corridor. I know that for me, I'm starting to travel to the gymnastics studio along that road that's Bighorn Seamless. You really have to plan your day to make sure you're on the right side of that highway. And so, none of us want to see incidents that result in needs assessment, right? But we're looking at that. And so in looking at shared goals, there are just a few different things that we as a school district, and this is a conjunction with the city of Cody, we see some interim solutions that are possible. And I appreciate that could affect what the corridor study is. But to make that area safer, a reduced speed of 30 miles per hour from Cooper Lane to Sheridan Avenue, the establishment of school zone with a 20 mile per hour speed limit during those designated times, and then the placement of traffic control there at Freedom and Bighorn Avenue. And it's interesting that we brought up Laramie because when I drive down to Laramie, almost every community I cross through has similar structures on a state highway. I see the kind of safety control devices that I would like to see on Bighorn. When I'm in Laramie and I see that three-way stop with a controlled intersection with a hot beacon, that seems to me like it's appropriate. Now I understand that you have your processes, I don't want to underestimate those. But that thoroughfare is getting busier. And so I just want to acknowledge that as a school district, we have zero authority on this. We have a huge interest, and we're not going to let up on our insistence that this stay in the forefront. Second, we don't have the authority to tell any student that they can't cross Bighorn Avenue. Those students are making the decision with 11, 12, and 13-year-old minds before all of our buses actually get to the school. So the availability for us to say to them, you can't take your bike across, or you can't walk, that's not available. And so we're just looking forward to continuing to work with YDOT, continue to work with the city of Cody. We've made major investments. We paid for a large portion of the construction of Freedom, and I'm glad to hear that there's potentially a conduit there. I know that the placement is going to be an issue. I'm just looking for it. So thank you very much.
It does help, a lot of things to address there, but it does help to, when there is political will, to drag those things. I know that it was probably a 15-year process to get Grand rebuilt, and it spanned several district administrations to get that median and that lock in there by the stadium. So, and it just depends on how much resistance you get until you start the study and have a public process. You don't know how the landowners feel. You don't know how the people that commute from Powell feel, and who all that it's going to impact, or how they think they will be impacted. So that's why I I say that what the improvement is depends, will influence how long it will take to do things. So, with respect to the interim things like speed limits, if we, those things will come out of the study too. But when we do a speed study, it would be very hard to justify a lower speed there. And then if you have a lower speed there, or say we just change the speed limit without justification, it wouldn't be enforceable. It would end up being a speed trap, and that would also impact the users from Powell. So it can make things less safe as well. So that's why we have these processes, is to look at all those options and decide which one is best before you do something that can have negative impacts.
No, just information. When I was in Laramie, same time Todd was, they used to have a flashing light across the Grand right in front of the dorms. You guys may remember that. But after they installed that yellow flashing light, a student was hit and killed because they looked at that yellow flashing light and assumed that vehicles would stop for them. And that's when I was down there. I still remember that kid that got killed in the intersection due to that flashing light. And so later on, the flashing light was removed because nobody was stopping for it. So.
Sure.
Sure.
Yes.
So I'm really glad that you were with us. There's been a lot of conversation this year and a number of different things in the paper. Park 6 has never advocated for what has been stated as simply painting a crosswalk on the road. I think we're all savvy enough here to recognize that this is a complicated, busy highway, and that there's going to have to be a number of different markings and devices that are utilized. The difference between a yellow flashing light and road markings and reduced speed and all of these things, we're talking about whether or not that those intersections are controlled or not controlled. It's not within my authority to say what any of that looks like, but I think that we can all recognize that as months go by and years go by with no change, there are consequences to that as well. And you have a large population growth that is virtually cut off from places like Mintuck Park and a few things. You have some residential facilities. You have a lot of different interests that need to be considered in this. And I appreciate the thoughtfulness, but I don't want any of the partners, as I like to call them, whether it's City of Cody or YDOT or the school district or even our community partners. Nobody's looking for something that is going to give a false sense of relief, right? Even here, right across from the park, you see those flashing lights and you slow down, knowing that number one, that's what you're supposed to do, knowing that somebody from your right might go right past and hit a pedestrian that's in front of your car. Right? So we included the Wyoming Department of the Highway Patrol, and we included our law enforcement partners. The solution to this is going to be multifaceted. It's going to include education. It's going to include enforcement, and there's going to be the change does come, and it will come to this area as well. And people will have to change their driving habits if that area is living safe. So.
The other thing I did want to mention that you brought up was the warrants and why they're important. Because no matter what we do, it has an impact. So if we set up a light there, the light actually generates some accidents because people don't always use them, the traffic control devices, as they're intended to. So that has some negative impacts, and those warrants are actually the statistical tipping points for when that device, like a signal, starts reducing accidents rather than create them. So if you're trying to avoid pedestrian accidents and you put in a light, you'll create a bunch of rear end accidents, and those warrants consider both the severity of the accidents as well as the number. So that's what those warrants actually are when we decide to treat an intersection.
If the speed limit is reduced in that area, and maybe a school sign put up, does that automatically qualify it as a superintendent zone then?
Yes.
With higher fines and such?
The only way we can sign or change the speed limit is with a speed study. And anything that isn't a statutory speed limit, either 70 or 30 in urban areas, there's a superintendent.
So, with that, statutorily, a school zone is 20, but right now, Bighorn Avenue at 35 is a superintendent zone. Because it is not 30 miles an hour, and that changed after Bighorn Avenue was reconstructed in 2007. Through political pressure, the speed study was done out there, and the speed was actually raised at that time because it was justified.
I prefer to call it public.
Call it what you want, that's what got the speed study started. I mean, it was justified in the end, but that's what got the speed study started out there.
Our traffic numbers have, I mean, I can do that way every day,
Yeah.
but our traffic numbers have changed so much since 15 years ago. It's absolutely crazy.
And the number of turning movements.
Oh, absolutely.
And that, I think, is what contributes to the
I agree.
confusion. And that's why, in order to make pedestrian crossings safe at grade, you have to manage that access.
Yeah, let's put in half a dozen roundabouts out here.
Put that on.
He's an advocate.
Oh.
So we were thinking that right there where 120 comes in, that'd be a good place for that.
Trucks and trailers,
We're gonna call
roundabouts
it,
in the vein of
Good
trucks
luck
and trailers.
with that.
we're gonna call it the Tilden Circle.
I'll take that as positive public input, yeah. All right, are there any more comments about the study or questions about that?
I guess just as, at least myself, I just like to see it, move forward as expeditiously as possible before we start bringing political pressure or public input.
Okay. We are expediting it as quickly as we can. So once it gets funded and we get consultants on board, we'll be in the middle of the study. And we will probably talk to you guys, the commission, about some public input or some engagement in that study. Okay, on with our presentation. So this is a little bit different than what we've done in the past, but the primary reason we're here is for public input or political growth. And also we need to know what you guys are working on to look for ways of partnership. And then I'm going to give you an overview of why that is. So this is what our presentation looks like. It'll a little bit of wide-on overview, and it's less about funding and more about what we do as an agency this time around. A little bit about the STIP development process, an overview. And then Todd and Randy are going to talk about both our current and future district projects. And then some next steps with regard to partnerships and some of our funding programs. So this is our agency purpose, mission, vision, and values. And our purpose is to facilitate commerce while connecting communities and improving quality of life, provide a safe and effective transportation system. These are our goals, and the top three there: ensure vibrant, safe, and confident workforce. That's something that we're kind of struggling with right now, because I'm sure a lot of the business owners are. acquire and responsibly manage our resources, and provide a safe, reliable, and effective transportation system. Those are our top two goals. These are the guiding principles that we use primarily for spending. And the first one is to not spend more than what we have. And then the first thing that we spend money on is focus on addressing identified critical life safety issues. And I think that's what we're talking about, or we're gonna evaluate whether or not it is a critical life safety issue. And that also gets at what the intersection at 2AB. That's what our what's our HSIP, our safety money is for. So, and we have to meet certain requirements to get funding for safety things because it's an improvement. And our third priority is to basically put money where it's needed. We use the condition of our roads to identify and prioritize where we spend our money. And then the fourth one is to improve operational effectiveness and efficiency. Those are improvements like adding lanes or turn lanes, the passing lanes between Walton and Shoshone. The fourth is to prioritize activities to minimize negative impacts to the public. I think that has to do with mobility primarily, and addressing mobility and capacity through system improvements and enhancements is our last. So that's, money is tight for us. We're barely keeping up with keeping our roads in good condition, but that's why we have to have approval to make improvements, even if they're safety improvements. What level we have to get to be a safety improvement. Next slide. So we have a number of assets. This is the list of some of the assets that we have to maintain with the money we have, because we often get the question, why not have $700 million every year? So how could they possibly need more? That's a lot of miles of road. It's a lot of bridges, culverts, guardrail, and that doesn't even include our ITS assets.
Have you heard anything about any availability through the governor's office on the ARP?
Not recently. We did get 62 million, and that went into our roads. So some of the projects in the STIP are listed as COVID. That's money that came from that 62 million. Next slide. So these are some of the programs that we support. The first one is in Cheyenne. That's our engineering and planning. The next five, there's five, one of those in each district. So that is where a lot of our money is spent in those first five, primarily on construction. And these ones right here, these other four are all state funded. We can't spend federal transportation dollars on maintenance, equipment, facilities, or traffic ITS things that are operational. We can do new installations. So maintaining it is on us. And that's why, we got some complaints, and I think we talked about this the last 15, about our big DMS signs. And our director put a moratorium on any new installations of ITS equipment. Some of the other programs we support are emergency communications. That's our Wyoming. Nathan's not here this time. Thanks, slide. And we have one of the broadest scopes of any of the DOT agencies in the country, because we do patrol, aeronautics. And aeronautics is like a separate DOT all on its own. And then some of the other support programs we have are driver services, compliance investigation, motor vehicles, and then all these other programs. And you guys are familiar with our local government transit program and planning, so we have a really broad scope for DOT. Next slide. This is the one slide, or one of three slides that we had about money this year. This is our revenue over the past since 1996. And what it shows is that our revenue's been flat, but our buying power has been reduced over since 2010. This is that $63 million that we just talked about. That's that big one right there. Next slide. So because we knew we were short funded, I think the number we used in the past was 137 million annually that we had in our presentation every year. We got a consultant over the last 2 years to go through our funding and our needs. And this is kind of the executive summary of what that shows for our unfunded needs. And this is our annual shortage, just to keep things at, in their continuing condition, but it does also include some one-time funding for this year for some needed improvements that we haven't funded. Again, some of it's state funding, like maintenance, traffic, safety. These are the delayed projects. That's the one-time funding that we don't have in there. Next slide. So these are some of the things that we've done to save money. Again, these rest areas are all open, but we've closed them for a period and then opened them thinking we were getting tourism money, which that didn't pan out. We couldn't use that tourism money for our rest areas. So we're going to make that decision by the end of July. We're going to have to stay open. Next slide. So these are the delayed projects that I talked about. And these are the two in our district. The passing lanes are needed this morning. We did just complete 7 of them from the district line up to Medina. And I think that's helped a bunch. It's made a big difference. We do have an overlay on that project and a chip seal to kind of tie it all together so that those longitudinal joints don't rot out. But I think these are two pretty important projects that we'd like to get funded, but they're delayed indefinitely until our funding changes. Next slide, please. So if we do get additional funding, say that we get an infrastructure spending bill or some of the relief money ends up going to infrastructure, basically we would use those guiding principles to decide how to spend it. Next slide. So this is a little bit about the STIP process. So we do this all year long. We gather asset management information and performance measures. Those are the things that tell us what condition our roads are in, or what roads are in what condition. That's what told us Cody South needs to be. And we're getting pretty close to getting a lot of the roads around here back up to a good condition. The other thing that we do year round is we'll take public input anytime. Whether that's at National Parks Day or meeting with some of our constituents that we do periodically. We gather public input all year round. And then in April, May, we do what we call balancing the STIP. We take those roads that need to work the most and prioritize them and we stick them in the STIP for out years. Or if we get, say, an improvement project that needs to come up, if it's a small amount, we can insert it in it. It doesn't have to go into 2027, it can go in. And they move around in the STIP periodically too, every year because some things drop out. And then this is where we're at right now. Once we get our STIP put together, we go out for public input and we send it out to all these different groups. And this is you guys right there, going out to the local governments and solicit public input. Then in September, the Transportation Commission will approve our STIP for the Highway Administration, and then we publish it in October. And then again, it gets revised. Next slide. So if you go into our website to look at the STIP, this is what you'll see is this interactive map. And you can click on any of these dots and they're color coded, not just for make it look pretty, but by year. So the red ones are all fiscal 2021 projects, and you click on one of those things and it'll bring up information about it and give you an opportunity to comment. You can also put in just general comments about projects that are needed. So once projects get put in the step, this is what our process looks like. And the point of this slide is that there's opportunities for public input all through the process. So generally, we do a public meeting, gather input on the scope, and this is one of those meetings where we look for input on what should be included in the projects that we have in the scope. And during the design phase, if it's a complicated project, we have public meetings such as like code streets. We have public input to see how we're impacting people and try and mitigate those impacts. And then during the construction phase, we also sometimes have public meetings to try and see if there's something that we're missing and try to mitigate those impacts. This shows the number of projects and the dollar amount in the contract that we let every year. And on the average, it's about 300 million per year and about 100 projects. And I think through June, we were about 219 million. Our fiscal year ends in October. September is our last letting. So we're going to be right in that average range, about 100 projects, and maybe a little over, and about 300,000. So what we have in what the STIP is it's basically our 6-year spending plan. And it includes all these different types of projects. We have transit, aeronautics, public safety, emergency communication projects, and then capital improvement projects. Next slide. So it's broken out by county on our website, and the first thing you'll come to if you go to Fort County is this map. And it shows all the current year projects are in red. So those are the 3 going on right there. And then the blue ones are future projects. If it's a carryover from last year, it wouldn't show up on this map. So projects that were let in, say, fiscal 20, that are still under construction won't show up on that map. But it looks like we have an aeronautics project and some transit projects in Clark County. Next slide, please. And then there's also a tabular form on the website, and it gives a brief description of the type of work and the location. So if you're looking, say you have a county road that you want some pavement on, if you're looking at pavement, you know, it might be an opportunity for us to park around. Next slide. And then there's a summary of all the dollar amounts for the different categories that we spend in the county. So the bottom line is in Clark County, we'll be spending 72 million over the next 6 years. Roads and transit and aeronautics projects. It looks like we have some substantial aeronautics projects.
Can you give an example of aeronautics project? What, are you talking runways or what?
It can be anything. It can be buildings. It can be towers. I'm not sure what those ones are, but I can find out.
It could be just striping, crack seal striping,
Okay,
those kind of things.
on the airport itself, okay.
So now, Todd and Randy are going to talk about the current and future projects. You're up, Todd.
Hey, do you want to go back to that?
Come on up, slide.
I'm gonna stand this side.
So some of these don't show up, but Cody South is done past the landfill. We are right on the top of Chief Joseph, just about finished up there. We got a little minor cleanup right on the top of Dead Indian Summit on the slide. We are working, and of course, Cody Streets is done. We're working on this 150213, which is right by the turnoff to 296, and that's a level and overlay we're paving right now. Hopefully 3 to 4 weeks, we'll have it paved, chip sealed, and be down to just seeding. We are chip sealing a couple jobs. We've just done Cody East out by the KOA. We are out west towards the candy right now. I think that'll be finished up in the next couple days. And then we're out of this area on the chip sealing. What else do we got going on here right now? We are doing some delineator replacement. We're up on Chief Joseph doing that, and then we'll be out of the county in the next couple of weeks on that job. And that is it for this year. So in about 4 more weeks, we're going to be pretty much finished up in Park County. And then going into 2022, we are going to let the job, the first one we're going to let that's in the letting right now is Corbin Bridge. It'll be in the August letting. We're going to do fill an overlay on those 2 miles that were built back in 2000 with a wearing course, and that will be next summer, and a replacement of the damaged guardrail through there. So.
Great, yeah, hit me again. Yeah.
So Todd always says he's gonna be done, but then we find an emergency job for him to do. Cause we're gonna have one up on Chief Joe probably.
Yeah, we have another job on Chief Joe that's going to be in the December letting. It's on the 2 dot. It's the slide that's sliding on the bottom down there. We're going to fix that. And then the other one that's in the September letting now is the overlay Matitsi. This will be this job right here, and that'll go from the Grable River Road into Matitsi, and that'll finish up all the paving to Matitsi next year. And then the other job that Randy's trying to sneak in is this one up here that will go from the east entrance back for 10 miles. Believe it or not, that road is 24 years old already. Our design life is 20, and it kind of took a beating with all the hauled Yellowstone. So we'll be starting our overlay preservation coming back from the park. So that is 22. Oh, one other one that'll be let in 22 will be tunnel lighting. That's under design right now, LED lighting, and they're looking at the stuff for warning lights for the ends of the tunnels with the bicyclists and pedestrian type stuff.
So if you look in the handout, in 21, it shows a Pahaska section, that's actually 2022.
Okay, so going into 23, we're back to this other thing. We're on Chief Joseph. We haven't worked from 0 to 17 since 1999. So starting in 212 coming back, we're going to start looking at some overlaying up there. We do have a little slide settlement area, which would be this 1507046 at milepost 8.7 that we have to fix. That'll be in 23. Cody Grable, Eagle Pass overlay. It starts just this side of Oregon Basin and go all the way to the county line. Mill overlay and chip seal. Buffalo Bill Reservoir. We have the area from Trout Creek to North Shore Bay. We have 4 settlement areas that are getting really bad that we're going to fix. The rest will be a mill overlay and chip seal. And then we got Badger Basin. We'll start at 14A and go 9.82 miles and tie into our overlay that we did a few years ago. That'll be a mill and overlay. Then we jump into 24. We're going to be up here on Chief Joseph in 24, starting at 0, coming back. And then we'll start right at the intersection, come back 8.5 miles to the transfer station. Mill and overlay, and we have a pipe that's failing right by Crandall. And then we're also looking in that year, right from where all the kids cliff dive back to our rockfall fence. We're losing our guardrail. We're losing the road from the wave action of the lake. So we're going to be doing some arboring there. And then we jump on to 25. We'll be doing the next section of Chief Joseph, coming from 8.5 back to 17. Mill overlay and chip seal. We'll jump down here to Matitsi. We're going to start it on just the other side of Matitsi at the school crossing and go out to the county line. That's a mill overlay and chip seal with turn lanes at our shop between that and the new RV park there. So 26, we'll be jumping back up North Fork and doing the next 10 miles coming in from milepost 10 to 20. that's pretty much it, running up through the next few years.
I've got it's just a curiosity question. Why do you see a difference at a county line on a state highway? So you've got, maybe just run a chip seal to a county line. Is that just a arbitrary stopping point?
So a lot of the stopping points are based on where the original project stopped. So like in this case, the jobs on the other side of the county line might be newer and just don't meet the chip seal.
I was just curious. I mean, it's a state highway. There's I always wonder why you hit the county line. There's a different road
It's this
surface.
arbitrary spot where the original project broke. And like this one, the one in Matisse is a prime example because it went from town right out to the county line on the original job.
Yep.
So it's in, the way it's in with the age of it, it's due again. And that's why you get it that way.
And the turning lane deal there at your shop is a good idea. Another good idea is to ask your plow drivers to, unless they're plowing, kill all their hazard lights. Cause I was rolling out there and he had every hazard light in the world going. And my fault, I didn't see the turn signal in amongst all those hazard lights. And I started around him and then realized he was heading for the shop. But it was he wasn't plowing. He was just motoring. And just amongst all the flash and everything lights, it was, couldn't see the turn signal. The turning lane there would be.
We keep losing plows there. Actually, people continue to run into the back of the plows there.
Oh, I can see, yeah. I mean, like I said, you can't tell he's turning. Maybe I ought to pay a little bit or something. We'll bring it down from 90 to 80, but.
Just with this, obviously you see, and I already talked that the Haskell job has been pushed. It was in 24, it went to 21, and now it's in 22. So the STIP is a living document. And depending on how things are happening with our funding and the other districts, there's 5 districts here. This year, we had 2 jobs get held up in other areas of Wyoming due to some condemnation and railroad issues. And so for that, we have to slide money. And so we gave up, we ended up with more money this year to let some jobs late in the year. And then give them money next year type thing and share. So this is not set in stone. If other projects pop up, other improvements, things that come in, we try to slide them in as best as we can and manage the funding.
So what you're saying is you maintain a rigid state of flexibility?
Absolutely.
And we did go look at 2AB last year and tried to fit something in, and you can't without right of way.
Yeah.
And so now you're back into you gotta follow all the rules to match condemnation. And also you have the water line and the phone line and everything else out there, so.
I just need to move.
Yeah.
I know the pain. I've got a 15-year-old learning to drive a standard transmission. I live on 2AB and I've covered my eyes a couple times getting on the road there with him at the driver's seat.
So coming from Lane Tony, I can try to fit in and hit 70 miles an hour and inevitably the car in front of me is gonna turn right on the baby. Like, great, I just hit 70, I'm back to 30.
All right.
Thanks, Ron.
So quickly, I'm just gonna run through these photos again. This is the settlement repair out on 120 by the Chief Joe turnoff. There were those roller coaster humps out there that have been fixed. We hope that that's a good, long-lasting fix. We'll see. And so that's the project that's ongoing. It just needs paid now. This is the slide repair up on Chief Joe. The dip slide right on top that has been basically completed. There's just a little bit of cleanup up there left to be done.
We'll talk about the first photo.
First photo. No, we
You took it out on your grass, so I wanted you guys to know we took the photo out in front of the courthouse. I did a ribbon cutting for the Main Street project.
With the street.
You want me to? There.
You'll see Philip Bowman, he held one end, Barry Cook held the other.
Yep, great project. A lot of community help in that, being able to make that pull off. A lot of patience, and I think with the outreach that our crews here did, along with the county Chamber of Commerce and other businesses, definitely went smoothly.
just have a funding relationship with. It's actually a direct federal project of the Beartooth Highway. And that's active right now. And I think it should be completed this year, right?
It's supposed to be completed in September. I think they're kind of running behind, but
We're gonna go up there and do it with the highway commissioners towards the end of July, when they're setting the structural steel on that bridge. So, the next steps, there was a virtual meeting that started, or that will start July 26th. You can get in that anytime after July 26th. It's very similar to what we're getting here, but anybody can go view the step and provide public comment. And then there's also our website. The link is on the next slide. And everybody that's here will get if you left your email on there, we'll email you the presentation, so you have a link to the presentation. This is our contact information. These are my bosses. And that's Sarah from local government. You guys know her pretty well. If you want to know anything about our funding programs, or want to engage in a construction partnership where we might get economy of scale, I'm the guy to talk to. So you can catch me there if you call me or write me a letter. And that's for both construction and supply purchases. We buy house plant mix, hot plant mix every year, oil, all sorts of things. Next slide. So that's the link right there to the online meeting. And you can, this is the type of public input we're looking for. Next slide. I think that's it. There's any questions?
went back up. You can't really see the website when you start the meeting. It's YDOT, STIPmeeting.com. And it's interactive. You can go in, you can make a lot of comments like you made today if you want. Anybody can. But if you go to that website, and I'll send you, you'll get a copy of this whole presentation. So.
You had a picture of a bus on there. They're revising the bus system in this area. They're trying to work on that. Or?
I could find out for you what the nature of that transit project is. Is it in the STIP?
It would be, but we don't have a copy of it here. Let me see if I can look it up real quick while we're talking.
They don't come through us for those.
I go through our transit program.
Usually it's funding to the senior citizens buses and stuff like that is normally what them signify.
Yeah, so we do.
I'm not guaranteeing that's what it is, but we
Back to the slide.
provide quite a bit of money to those, like the senior citizens buses and stuff
Doesn't
like
have
that.
it on there.
No, one slide forward. That one. So it's a substantial amount of money. So that's like the building to house the transit.
It could be, I don't know.
Sometimes, you know, if you're buying two buses, they fund a lot of different things. So I don't know that they're revising the transit system, but it's probably a capital improvement project for a bus. Because it's 748 miles.
Great. Anything else for you guys?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
If I could, it's kind of a different subject. But north of town on the, with the Buffalo Bluff RV park up there, when the city was going through their annexation hearing, and one of my concerns being a resident up there, and the other neighbors were also concerned with the safety issues. And I witnessed a near miss with a motorcycle last week. And during the hearing, there was discussion of YDOT working with the city, trying to come up with some safety mitigation up there, and I just wanted to give them the thoughts of that.
I'll turn that over to Jack.
That's something that we'll take a look, if we hear concerns about it. We'll go.
You know, I mean, just even some simple signage to let people aware that there possibly be some slow-moving traffic pulling out. And the deal I witnessed, the guy in the camper, he did what he was supposed to, and he pulled into the left-hand lane, going up the hill, going north. And a motorcycle, who was accelerating from 35 to wherever, he had no room on the right side and he just zipped right on by. But if the guy that pulled out in front of me, he'd never stopped.
And that is part of the reason why there wasn't, like a turn lane or a speed reduction is because there's multiple lanes there. There's a lot of room. But we do continue to watch that for, and as there's more development and more turning movements there, that could slow the speeds down or warrant a speed limit reduction.
Yeah, I mean, just something as simple as some signage to make people aware that, hey, you might encounter a slow moving vehicle right here. Because that is a blind hill.
Okay. We will evaluate that and get back to you.
Okay, appreciate it.
Okay,
Any other questions?
what's that picture up there?
That's me and my son, when he was in sixth grade, we went down to the sixth grade all-star football in Wyoming. They played in the stadium and had announcers and everything. So that was,
Cool.
yeah. Great picture.
When he's playing for the Cowboys, they can retake that.
You either gotta get really fast or really big.
He's growing fast.
Guys, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Eddie. Thanks.
Wooden chairs.
We've had two fire trucks.
Nope, not at all.
Right there at the shop. Two fire trucks.
That's cool. I think it was another day. And I understand because the storm comes out. Yeah, that would be all of these.
You make
That's a good comment.
And I just didn't see the, amongst all that, I didn't see that. And I can understand them having those going for plowing, but he was just motoring. What is that? He was motoring at a good clip, but I didn't see that, and I turned around. He saw it coming. He probably used to watch the radio passing there.
Because I think our normal protocol is when they leave the shop, they turn on the lights. So it's a good comment.
Yeah, I just did not see, all that area of lights.
Yeah, appreciate the comments.
That's why they have to turn around on the other side of the road too. You don't know they're gonna do that.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
There's one of ours that but you're in. Thank you. How are you, man? No, I don't get better looking. Just give me your stuff, man. Yeah, good to see you.
We have to use them. Yeah. Okay, you just two. And you have to. Did you guys do one of these? Or you want this one? It's our gravel bike. Fine, you better get with it. You need to budget up.
Well, we have the amendments.
I have the amendments.
It's up to you.
Finding out.
Okay, yeah, just put that.
Yep.
Some advertisement in that
Yeah, one that came from when they pick them off, and then they swing a birds fly by, so. And they gave up one on it.
Well, they'll go to state.
I'll say shit, you know, you gotta figure, anything can happen, because the deal was 60. And then we lost our left fielder in the round, so he ended up getting a white spot.
For you. Yeah, thank you.
Fixed it, and they took out the ball.
Okay, we'll come
Anyway,
complain next time.
We're working.
I mean, besides, we can't start our new process.
You should feel comfortable.
So we have to wait.
Bring up all this.
So we got, it's 7 minutes.
It's just the two projects we can't fix very quickly. Or political.
Right. Yeah, and they're both public here, so.
We'll see you, thank
Hey,
you.
man, appreciate it. I don't know why they always come here so long.
That's funny. That was a quick one. I would have been.
What do you think?
Over here for the next, I almost like,
I know.
nah,
That's
if I
how
watched
I
my
was
video,
this morning. sitting
I would
up
have
there.
lost it. If
Yeah.
I did
Did you hear Lee's comment?
I think, which one?
Right when you turned it.
What did you like?
No.
Yeah, man, an hour for 5 minutes and I would have been.
Well,
It's not marked, but we do remember it's public hearing.
oh,
So you can't start today.
wait, on the budget amendments or public hearing? Okay, well,
Sorry. Yep, that's why I have to advertise in the paper. It's a public
Gotta wait.
hearing.
7 minutes?
5 minutes, I have 5 minutes, I go by my computer.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, both of them are.
You didn't
First
have anything,
statute, da, 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 da.
you didn't have anything for us though, to listen or
No, do you want me to make a copy of this really quick for you guys?
not?
No, I don't think
Okay.
it is.
No, you're gonna present them.
Did you hear from, no? Thank you.
Yes, we did.
It's in.
It's in there.
It's a wash revenue.
That's fine, as long as you know what you need to know.
Clean it up now. We just had it on last night. What's the problem?
So careful in that. 20 to 2 AV, and everybody who lives out there knows about it, so you're extremely careful, so there's no wrecks, which actually works against you. Because there were some safety issues.
You just need to take somebody out now, see,
I'm not gonna take
and you can get it done.
Just give them that,
No.
pick one to sacrifice.
Oh,
You know, it's the same conversation we had with them there on the TC highway.
Okay.
And we got it taken down to 60.
Is it 60 or 65?
60.
The question I asked about the RV park up there at the city meeting, and I'm on stuff with the city about this, they assured me in Modini that they would work with White House to mitigate all of the safety concerns up there. Danny talked to them.
we have the same thing at the Trout Creek one, and it's not so bad coming from Powell because it is
Yeah.
2-lane, but going from Cody out,
Yeah.
there's a single lane and you just merge, and you're doing 70 and you start around and somebody decides to turn left into that park and everybody
Well,
goes.
I mean, that's what happened up there the other day. Going south is not a problem. Going north, it's a blind hill.
Yep.
And I'm just very thankful that the guy that was one of those big motorhomes, because he pulled into the left-hand lane like he should have. He's gone straight across. That motorcycle would hit murder. No way the guy could ever stop. The motorcycles in particular, when they hit the top of that hill, they're accelerating from 35 to 70 and they're romping on. Oh, well, why does kind of like that? Working seriously.
Irrigation.
Irrigation districts. Do
Yeah, true.
they have to, does White have to do anything different when they work in the forest? I mean, when they work on, highway in the forest, do they have any?
I bet they do. Yeah, they do. I mean, there's different things. When they rebuilt all that, road before they rebuilt it, it was a 55-mile-an-hour speed limit. They rebuilt it into a better, faster road, took the speed limit to 50. It's because of grizzly bears.
Chestnut for the back.
Yeah. Kind of, kind of want Tim to sit down.
See, we got some
Keep that.
Carol's
Yeah,
Drive.
that-
Just like not public.
Actually, It's kind of.
She used to always sit.
Oh, did she?
She'd get mad. She'd like come stand there and stand over anybody who sat in that chair.
That's just.
Yeah, it's funny to me, even you had a negative experience, or, you know.
I don't know. I ain't always got along with you.
I never.
Oh, I did, it's why not.
It's so.
Why not?
Yeah.
I'll let Cody know.
Okay.
Current
Still on the hallway.
Oh, are they?
I think so.
It's a nice one. Give it to me, I'll take it, Cody.
Eventually.
I'm gonna go ahead and open up the public hearing. By the time I quit talking about opening up the public hearing, it'll be 2:20. This is the final approval of Park County budget amendments. Clerk Renner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Whereas the Board of County Commissioners of Park County, Wyoming held a public hearing on Tuesday, July 13th, 2021 to make amendments to the current budget. Therefore, be it resolved, the Board of County Commissioners that the 2021 fiscal year budget is hereby amended and shall incorporate the following changes. Increase COVID-19 102 grant by $1,425,995. Increase COVID-19 102 grant by $189,200.11. Increase COVID-19 364 grant by $600,388.45. Total revenue increase is $2,210,183.56. Also increasing expenditure items, increase the Park County Commissioners by $16,126.36. Increase the county treasurer by $10,986.88. Increase planning and zoning by $24,043.76. Increase general accounts by $79,450.93. Increase county coroner by $4,893.55. Increase road and bridge grants by $18,142.43. Increase public health COVID grants by $834,690.13. Total expenditures increase of $988,334.83. Dated this 13th day of July 2021.
Great.
Questions?
Questions? Public hearing.
Was the 16,000 for the commissioners part?
What was the 16,000 for the commissioners for?
What was it,
It
Mr.
was,
Steve?
it was the chairman's travel budget.
Yeah, no.
No.
What was that?
It was legal fees for Vanguard.
Oh, that's right.
Legal fees.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, there's gonna be more next year. Well, hearing no further public comment, I would
I move we close the public hearing. Mr. Chairman.
move and second to close public hearing. Further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Oh, do I need to keep that open for the approval of the budget? No, do we?
No,
No,
well,
that
they're
was
two
separate
separate
meeting.
things.
Yeah.
So that'll be resolution 2021-41.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the amended budget as is.
Second that. Okay. Move.
You got to wait 8 minutes.
So what you moved to approve the budget amendments. Yeah. Okay. Moved and seconded. Further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So now we gotta wait till 2:30 to approve the final budget.
That's a public hearing we had last night.
We just had a public hearing to take comment. Do we have to approve the budget in public hearing? Did you advertise for?
I advertised both. I advertised for the
Yeah.
public hearing last night and final approval today.
So it's a public hearing.
Yeah. sorry, that's per statute, I can find
Yeah, I
it
know,
for you, but
we have that conversation every year.
I think so. And I feel I should have told her to put them close, could have backed them right on top of each other. But you never know if we're gonna have comments, so. We're waiting. Chairman. This is the amendment. And like I said earlier, so what we finished today, on that, I'll have those available for you next Tuesday.
Get all the numbers switched.
Email
Yes.
legitimate, fix over the, well, kind of weird too, because they get a slot.
But I don't even know,
Slot for him.
I don't even know how electronic signing is,
It's kind of a-
but it needs to go to him too.
Well,
For the-
vendor's office.
Oh,
For
don't
the
worry about
defenders.
it, he sent it to me electronically.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
And so they've already signed it?
Yeah.
So you printed it and it's signed?
No, they'll approve it on the 20th.
Oh, so you have it all taken, okay.
Yeah,
In a
I
minute.
think we're terrible with it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Naomi sent it to you like that, and we got a whole book with that, so we got it.
Oh, perfect, okay. Well, I didn't know if it was a fish, and so I jumped in this morning, because I get 2 or 3 a day from them.
I'll write Madigan and ask them if they can shut that off.
Okay. Thank you for taking care of that, and Steve, thanks Steve as well too. Oh, just a comment, I was helping a lady out of some law firm up in Montana last week, and she says to me, she needed a couple resolutions, and so she called and asked if I could email them to her. I happened to get the phone call, and so anyway, I proceeded to email them to her, and she says, I would just like to comment on Park County's website. 1, I love all of the pictures you guys are using, and 2, it is one of the easiest ones I've ever had to move around in. And she goes on a lot of websites from the sound of her. She was the nicest lady, and I bet we spent 20 minutes on the phone. She was just, and I'll get your name, she was just awesome, and she just really likes Park County's website. And not only the photography, she said, that took her back, I mean, she really liked all the pictures on there, but she said so many use pictures and they don't fade them out and they cover the words and you can't see what's behind them, and she said it was just an excellent website. So many times we get calls for, because they don't really know what's the difference between the clerk and the clerk of the district court. So they call us for the recordings of their divorce decrees, and they want a copy of this and that, yeah, all that kind of stuff. So she said it was very easy to move her around in, and she found exactly what she needed.
lights in those tunnels back in the, I think, the eighties. Right after they got done putting it in there, they learned that what they'd installed soon to be obsolete. But it's been, they've done some tune-ups to it here and there, but it's the same stuff that's been in there since the eighties. And I've been after them to do that warning light for pedestrians and bikes on either end. I mean, I've seen them in other places.
There's a lot more bikes going through there.
Yeah. The pullout, the climbing pullout is damn sure cut down on folks walking through there. Yep, well, we go ahead and open up the public hearing for the final approval of the Park County fiscal 2021-22 budget. Clerk Brenner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you're aware, we had our public hearing last night and presented the fiscal year 21-22 budget to you. And so now we just need final approval to proceed forward with where you want the funds to go and what you'd like the next steps to be, or if there's anything that needs to be added or any comments.
Mr. Chairman, I would only ask that we make sure that we add the 5.4 million in ARP money into the budget for both receipt and expenditure. We don't know how much is going to happen this year, so we need to kind of track all of it. We may or may not spend much this year, but you do have a new account that you set up.
Yeah, there's a whole new, it's not in the general, it's its own fund, American Recovery Fund 900 fund. And it's got 5.4 for revenue and 5.4 for expenses.
Cool. Another way to track it. Okay, thank you.
Any questions?
The only other change, I'll just show you, I got the numbers for any COVID grant money. That's that, and that is completely offset by revenue for COVID-19 on the revenue side.
Public hearing. Any questions from the public? Yes.
Mr. Chairman, so that 5.4 is not within the 26. Is that correct?
You can direct that question to Steve, because I couldn't quite hear what you were saying.
It's the 5.4 in ARC funding is not in the 26.3.
No, it's not. It's its own
That's
separate
above
fund.
and beyond.
So if some of that money is spent, we then amend the budget, or just gonna track it. I mean, like, let's say,
It's tracked under its own separate entity, like the landfill or the county road funds or E911. It'll be tracked just like that as its own separate entity. So there's no chance of anything going in or out of that would get confused with anything in the general budget.
Okay. Anything else? Entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Someone,
Move second to close the public hearing. For the discussion, all those in favor?
Go ahead.
I was just gonna ask if we have to do a separate motion to move the 443 to the 268 into reserve. Or
I don't believe that's part of the budget as a whole, but you can make a motion, we can do it that way if you want to. Because that's the intent, is that we have, that's the way this budget's written, is that, am I correct?
Well, in the past, we have had a budget with a little bit left over. We did not put in reserves. We left it as an excess in the general. Yeah.
Okay.
So if we wanted to go to reserves, I believe you would make a motion to put it in.
Entertain for that motion.
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion that we move the projected year-end fund balance of 443,268 to our reserve.
Well, second that, and it's reflected in the, whatever you call it, Colleen Road, it's reflected in there.
Yes.
It's good point.
Budget message.
Summary, that's what I want.
Yeah. Okay, moved and seconded for Further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the FY 2021-22 general fund budget as presented.
Second.
Moved second, and further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thanks for all your work.
Resolution 2021-42.
Just for the record. Okay, next up, as soon as we get Cody, Park County Landfill Manager, Greg. I'm here to request an exemption to resolution 2021-38 on the open fire restrictions and fireworks restrictions in Park County.
That's correct. Yeah, and as I mentioned this morning, I'm talking with.
On the table.
Yeah. Sorry.
Do you want to,
Sorry.
do you want me to pick you up or? stand on the shoulders, or
Here, you try to do it.
Which one do you push?
The power off button with the green light. Maybe I just need to get under it more. All right, thank you.
That extra 2.5 feet.
I'll just start getting under it. It'll work.
So, jump, continuing on.
So, yeah, so in lieu of this, right, in an effort to gather more information, I contacted Wyoming Department of Environmental Quality, our quality personnel. The person that we had been dealing with previously, Greg Meeker, it's apparent to me that, in years past, it has nothing to do with the current Park County ban. I just want to understand how we function in the past. They would typically write a 6-month permit twice a year that would give them authorization to burn with these various stipulations. One being you contact the local authority, in this case would be the sheriff's dispatch, at the beginning of the day, verify that you'll have, this size of burn, you'll watch it, and then contact them at the end of the day when the fire is over with. According to the new individual that's taken over, they're not doing that quite the same way. Now they're requesting, unless it's completely vegetative, which is branches, shrubs, and those kinds of things, if there's any kind of wood at all, in which case you don't need a permit, but you have other restrictions. You have to keep it under 1,250 cubic feet, which, like I said, this morning is not a very big fire, or very big pile, has to be 500 feet away from the congregation of people. And then again, it has to be completely shrubs, trees, and those kinds of things. If it's got any wood in it at all, then it takes it to another level. So that's all to say, in this case, going forward, we'll likely administer our burning underneath that premise where we would keep the burn small under 1,250 cubic feet, which is very, like I said, is very big. Places where we're typically burning, where we do burn at the landfill, and this is just at the Powell and Cody size, is very isolated, very little vegetation anywhere in the immediate area for some ways. And that we continue to do like have in the past, contact the sheriff's dispatch in the morning, after checking weather forecasts and expected wind conditions and those kinds of things. And based on that, I would get a permit from the DEQ, get their authorization, do the burn, be monitored throughout the day, and then at the end of the day, call again and say that our burn is finished.
Basically, what you want right now, though, is you need an exemption from the current restrictions if you can.
Oh, correct.
Jerry, you got any heartburn with that?
Just concerns, and Greg mentioned a lot, he would check the weather. I think it would be in your best interest that you don't do it when it's a red flag condition.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, the other day, because I wanted to understand how the process works, so the other day I happened to, I just went ahead and called the sheriff's dispatch and said, so I want to understand this is the process. that my guys in the field undertake when they want to do it. She's like, yeah, absolutely, we want to know for each side, we would do a permit for, all sides. And today would be a very good day because it's red flag day. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I mean, right now it's not blowing in Powell, but, we've received, I've looked at the forecast, there's forecast for elevated winds, gusting winds, this afternoon. So based on those conditions, we would see another day like this.
So the question I would have too, Greg, is with the DEQ requirements, you not exceed 1,250 cubic feet, which is, I did it real quick, it's 46 yards, which isn't very big. Are you gonna run into a situation where it's gonna start accumulating, you're gonna have to separate it out into smaller piles? Or?
I guess that's what I gotta play with, that's what I gotta understand. So, according, in talking with this guy yesterday, he insinuated that if it's all vegetative, you don't need to do this permit request. But when I go online and look at it, it looks to me like it is a requirement. So I'd have to ferret that out.
Yeah.
And then, part of, I like the idea of doing smaller burns more frequently, although, in some cases we're hobbled a bit by, weather conditions that may, windy days that might go back to back, and all of a sudden you've accumulated, something that's in excess. The other thing that contributes to it is anytime you put any wood, processed wood, 2x4 or anything of that nature, and with power, then all of a sudden it takes it to this next level, and I haven't explored what that means for the SMP, the smoke management program. So I mean that's even more onerous, I think. I'm really baffled by, so it's all predicated on not emitting more than, you probably understands more about this, but 0.25 tons of particulate off of the burn, which I find that 1,250 cubic feet of shrubs is equivalent to 12 acres of stubble. And I mean, that's literally, those were kind of the table, it gives you a table, in this.
So you're asking us to explain to you why DEQ is not making any sense?
No, I'm just sharing some of the frustrations that I encounter when I delve into some of these issues on a daily basis.
Yes.
Just a couple quick questions. Do you have any idea how often you'll be burning, or is it pretty much just weather dependent?
Well, I would say, based on the size restriction, probably in Cody at least a couple times a week.
Okay.
In Powell, it's not near as frequently, but again, before the previous permit, the stipulation was for 6 months and the volume was 10,000 cubic foot. So, there's a huge.
Sure. Okay, my next question is, the area that you use to burn up there, how far is it removed from native shrubs and all that type of thing? Anything that might catch fire?
Yeah, there's very little, there's absolutely very little in Powell, because there's very little vegetation there. You'd be hard pressed to raise a cow on 10 acres down there, but it's a little bit more in Cody, but it's still, quite, the density of the vegetation is pretty sparse.
Would it do any good moving forward to try and coordinate with road and bridge and get the county water truck up there on days you're gonna burn?
Probably not. Right now it's the water truck is dedicated to the chip sealing, and I assume so it's it's out in Clark. I do have at Cody's side, I have that posi shell machine that's always got some fluid in, and it's really a hydro seeder, is what it would look like. So I mean, you got the ability to spray with it. We just don't, depending on what day of the week it is, we typically run 3 to 4 days, and by the 4th day, we're starting to get down as far as volume, and it holds, upwards of 2,000 gallons when it's full. The last day it might be down to 400.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, how do you propose to do this as an amendment to?
We're going to propose an amendment to this resolution, and we can do that we'll put it in writing. It'll have to come. This resolution will have to have another amendment added to it, and then it's an amended resolution, we can sign it.
I had a question about the burn board again.
For what?
The
burn board, what you call dispatch, burn board. Now, the dispatch said they didn't recommend doing it. Do they have any authority to say no?
I think they do, I think they would probably advise,
Well, besides advise,
Well-
to say no, don't do it.
yeah, that I couldn't tell you, I don't,
Maybe that would have to come from the warden, I suppose, right?
We don't have the authority. The authority would come from the sheriff. The dispatchers, just like Greg said, make a recommendation, red flag conditions, wind blowing. We would advise you not to do this. According to the resolution, though, it gives farmers the agricultural okay to do that. You hope they use their best judgment. And that's what Greg is doing. I mean, I think if you make all the preparations you can, burn on the days that the weather permits, start it early in the morning, typically when we don't have the winds, and make sure that it's out when they leave in the evening. Because the way the winds blow, I know out there, I know sure what they're like in Powell, but the night winds start very easily.
I've also had them tell me when we've called in for farm type burning that, we've already got 6 going, can you do it tomorrow or something like that? So if they think the trucks may be a little bit too far spread out if the weather changes, then they advise us that they've got a lot going on.
Okay. Let's play with the board.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we go ahead and approve the exemption. Be added to the original fire restriction resolution. As an amendment.
Second? I'll second that. So it's basically the motion is to approve the exemption for Park County landfill to conduct their burns with the same stipulation of notifying the dispatch. Okay. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Pete, I think that's the cleanest way to do that, Susan, is it's just pull up a new resolution and, this one amend it and we'll sign it.
Okay, would that need a new number then,
It would,
Mr. Chairman?
it would because it's an amended resolution.
Okay, so that would be 2021-44 law.
Thanks, Jerry.
Anything else?
All right, you got it. All right, next up, we were presented by Cody Regional Health, Powell Valley Healthcare last week requesting funding for ambulances. Scott, do you want to come up here in case we have any? We got Scott Bagnell from Powell Valley Healthcare. What's our total amount? You got it.
747,518.
And this is our first crack at using the American Recovery money, the ARP money. So we listened to what they had to present last year, or last week, seemed like last year, and given the direction our county is heading with the aging population, new population, et cetera, I think it's a good idea to move forward with this. So.
I got no question over it, as I said, last time they presented them very much, they really think it's needed. I hate to say we need it, but we do.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I think it fits a lot of the criteria, the idea behind the money,
Yes.
Giving us more assistance in the healthcare area.
And looking at supplies nowadays, building materials, actually building that barn, I think haste would be the best word to getting this project going before you have to come back and say, oh, we're short. We don't want to do that. We want to do that very bad. Okay. That's what I like to do.
So, Mr. Chairman, with that, I would make a motion that we approve the application from Cody Regional and Powell Valley Healthcare for the 2 ambulances and the Powell Garage building as submitted.
Moving seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you all.
You've already been, Susan said you guys go work with her and be able to submit all the, jump through the hoops.
Yep. You're ready to jump through.
Okay.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you. I hope I don't need you. But if I do,
If you do, we'll be there.
We'll be there, we'll come get you.
with the new ambulance, you gotta come pick me up, bring the new one.
We'll bring you. Try and get some-
Well, then you better wait, because it's probably not here yet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else we get to the order? That? Sit down for that.
Motion to
Adjourn. Okay,
second.
moved and seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Okay.
I thought you asked if there was anything else you wanted to bring up. And there was one thing I was gonna bring up, but
Good.
well, it's just,
Too late.
with that art money here. And now that we can use it for buildings, the library people are gonna come after some of that money, but it's premature.
But it doesn't, I don't know, just because it's a building doesn't mean, I don't know that it fits.
But Mr. Chairman, this is for, targeted to public safety and public health.
Yeah.
With the building and ambulances, where the library, I'm not seeing where you could fit that in.
Well, I was going through some old papers and cleaning things out on my desk, and I came across something that I think it was Pat sent us all about justifying using art money. She made a good case. So, I just wrote it.
There may be some state.
You know, personally, I think it's premature. I'm not gonna sit here with, on a pile of money for 2 years and 10 people need it for something that may or may not happen.
So by approving that today, that gives them the green light to move forward immediately, right?
Yeah.
The work, yeah.
So you're gonna start working with Susan on finalizing